Hello my dear students, welcome to the class of 11th English medium. The subject is statistics. Today we will be discussing with chapter 2, that is presentation of data, brought to you by Vitan sir. Now let us see that variable has basically two types, that is quantitative variable and the qualitative variable. Now, quantitative variable has further two separate categories, that is one discrete variable and the second is the continuous variable. So before we start with presentation of data, we have to be very sure about which variables we are going to present, whether we are presenting the discrete variable or the continuous variable. Now let us check out what is the meaning of this discrete and continuous variables. Discrete variable. Now, definite or countable values within the specified range. So, discrete variables are some of the values which are definite or countable, means between two things, between 2 points, whatever values are there, they are definite, they are not infinite, and they are countable. If we want to take example, it could be number of children, road accidents, number of pages of a book, etc. All of these things, if you see, we can count them on our fingers also. The number of children in a family could be how many, right? 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100. Are you getting my point here? That the number of children or the road accidents in a single day, take any road and count the number of accident it faces in a single day, how many it would be? They are definite, they are countables. Take a book of pages, 10,000. Okay, just imagine 10,000 pages in a single book. Still, they are definite, they are countable. So, discrete variable is a variable which includes these kind of things, which are definite, which has a limit. We can count these values. So, that is a discrete variable. Second is a continuous variable. Now, continuous variable is quite opposite of the discrete variable. It can assume all the values between a specified range. That is, between a range, it can assume each and every value. Therefore, it can be either infinite or even if it is finite, it is kind of uncountable. If you want to take an example, height of a person or a temperature of a day or stars in the sky, all of these things we can say that are either infinite or they are uncountable finite. Stars in the sky are not infinite, they are finite. But even today, I don't think we can actually count the stars in the sky. There are many predictions done, but day by day new stars are found with more and more powerful telescopes. So the number of stars found are increasing. So they are finite, but they are kind of uncountable. Then when we think about height of a person, so consider a range 3 foot to 9 foot. 3 foot to 9 foot. How many persons of the height between 3 foot to 9 foot could be there? If I think about it, it could be infinite, because 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.35, 3.352, we can take infinite numbers between 3 foot to 9 foot. So they are either infinite or uncountable finite. That is a continuous variable. So discrete variable we can count, while continuous variable we cannot count properly. We can only show it by a range. Next is about a data. Now again, data has two types when we are talking about presenting it. In the first chapter we learnt about how to collect the data. So whenever we are collecting the data, that data obtained at the end of the sample or population inquiry is called raw data. Raw data means we can call it kacha or haphazard or not arranged properly. So it is in a haphazard form and it is actually difficult to analyze this data, and this data is also known as ungrouped data. Look at this picture here. This is just a heap of coins, so there are all types of coins in this heap. There could be coins of 10 rupees, 1 rupee, 5 rupee, 2 rupee, 50 paise. There could be any type of a coin in this heap of coins. So this is an example of a raw data. We have collected coins of different denominations, but we have kept them in a single box, everything together. So it is ungrouped. What we need to do with this is classify them. What we need to do? We need to classify them. So we will call it classified data. So the process of arranging raw or ungrouped data into proper form is called classification of data, and the data obtained is called classified data. This data is also known as grouped data. As you can see in this picture, all the coins which we have collected, if we group them together into different denominations, then this is the kind of data which we get, which is properly grouped, properly classified into proper categories. So it becomes easier for the statistical analysis, and using this data we can derive conclusions, we can calculate sums. Ungrouped data, raw data, is not useful for that purpose. We need classified or the group data for the purpose of calculating sums, deriving conclusions, making assumptions and estimations of the future. Reasons for classification of data. Just now what I told you guys, it has been explained point wise according to the textbook. The first point is to represent large data into simple, short and attractive manner. We might have 1,000 coins, but when we categorize them according to 200 coins of 1 rupee, 200 coins of 2 rupee and so on. So it becomes simple, short and attractive. For easy comparison between various characteristics of the data, that is different characteristics of the data are there for which we need to compare them. Okay, when we classify the data according to groups or according to traits or characteristics or categories, we can make a comparison between them. For example, 200 coins of 1 rupee, 200 coins of 2 rupee, 300 coins of 5 rupees. So we can compare them, that how many coins are more in 5 rupee section and how many coins are less in the 1 rupee section. We can compare them properly. To save time, money and labor, when we want to analyze 1,000 coins and then we want to just analyze 4 to 5 categories, you can understand that which one is easier to do, which saves time and money. So categorizing saves us time, money and labor. To obtain information easily regarding various characteristics of the area under study. Basically categorization, classification depends on the characteristics of the population or the sample units which we have with us. So using classification, it becomes easy to study the characteristics of the data for which we are undertaking the inquiry. Last topic of today's discussion, types of classification. Of course we have discrete data, we have raw data, but for that we need to understand the types of classification, because discrete data and continuous data has different methods which we need to undertake. So first one is the classification of quantitative variable. Okay, the classification of quantitative variable, and then second is the classification of qualitative variable. As we have seen earlier, that variable has two types, that is quantitative variable and qualitative variable, and then the quantitative variable has discrete data and continuous data. So again we have two types of classification, classification of quantitative variable and classification of qualitative variable. So quantitative variable, when we classify, that is basically classification of numerical data. Okay, quantitative, that is variable explained in quantities. Now that is these things, quantitative, qualitative, we have already studied in the first chapter. So quantitative basically means numerical data, the data which can be expressed by numerical values. So classification of quantitative variable is basically the numerical classification, while classification of qualitative variable is basically classification of non-numerical data. So qualitative variables basically means personality traits, nature, color, mood, etc. things cannot be expressed by numerical values, so they are called non-numerical classification. So types of classification: quantitative for variable, for the qualitative variable. Quantitative variable means numerical classification and qualitative variable means non-numerical classification. Next time I will come with the examples of both of these types, and then I will discuss in detail the quantitative variable classification. Till then, stay tuned. See you next time.